You know, when the first reporter was allowed access to look in on Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment in Milwaukee, he's noted as saying there was nothing out of the ordinary, nothing unusual, except for this one glowing lava lamp. In today's video, let's talk about Jeffrey Dahmer. So welcome to today's video. You're probably here watching because, like me, you've seen the Netflix series on Jeffrey Dahmer called Monster. You've probably seen the other one that was released as well, Conversations with Jeffrey Dahmer. Having seen those documentaries, those series, I learned that Jeffrey Dahmer's father had written a book. It was published in 1994, which was also the same year that Jeffrey Dahmer was killed in prison.
In Wisconsin today, Jeffrey Dahmer died. He was murdered in the prison where he was sent in 1991 for murdering 17 men and boys.
I had no idea that Jeffrey Dahmer's father had written a book, but when I learned of it, I became interested in wanting to read it. As a father myself, if I had a child who would grow up to do the things that Jeffrey Dahmer did, I would try to wrap my head around what made my child turn out the way that they did. Which is what Lionel Dahmer attempts to do in his book, which I have here in today's unboxing. This one's well out of print. I have a first edition hardcover that I was able to find on eBay. And it's called A Father's Story. I'm just going to read the back cover here. It says, "How could anyone believe that his son could do such things? How was it possible that all of this had been hidden from me? Not only the horrible physical evidence of my son's crimes, but the dark nature of the man who had committed them. This child I had held in my arms 1,000 times, and whose face, when I glimpsed it in the newspapers, looked like mine." Wow. I think this is going to be a pretty intense read. Yeah, this should be interesting because I myself am a father. I'm curious if I would have dealt with things the same way that he dealt with things, having learned that his son was hands down a monster. There's no denying that. So with that being said, I will be back in perhaps a week or so. I'll give you my review of A Father's Story by Lionel Dahmer. Alright, so I read the book. It took me approximately about 2 days actually. It was a pretty quick read. You know, having seen the Netflix series Monster, the book, it goes through all the same events that can be seen in that Netflix series. Reading the book, I basically visualized scenes from the Netflix series. I do believe that the writers of that series probably researched and read this book prior to writing the series. So basically we have Lionel starting from, it's all from his point of view. He talks about Jeffrey Dahmer's childhood, his teenage years. He basically says that Jeffrey had he calls him Jeff. Jeff had a typical upbringing. He was a quiet, happy child. It was by, I think, something like grade 1 that he began to show signs of antisocial behavior, that sort of thing. And it's something that just became more apparent as Jeff grew into to be an adolescent. It seems like from early on he was an introvert. He preferred to be by himself. Now, one thing that I picked up on right away, and something that Lionel says at the end of the book, is that while Jeffrey's mother was pregnant with him, she was on some prescription drugs. And I mean, if you're taking prescription drugs during pregnancy, whatever it is that your body is ingesting, you are naturally giving that to your unborn child. So his mother was on prescription medication, and after he was born, she did continue to have these episodes of depression and anxiety and just mental health issues. Lionel was a chemist, and he did not spend a lot of time at home. He chose to be away working. I think he says he was trying to avoid her and the issues that she was having, because he didn't know how to deal with her. And so, I mean, as a young child, Jeffrey Dahmer, he witnessed, his mother's behavior. And I think children are like sponges, and, by the sounds of it, she wasn't a good role model, really, to be around. Not that I'm blaming her, but it just, I sort of put that together right from the start. And again, it is something that Lionel mentioned in an interview with Inside Edition later on. He says that his wife was on a lot of prescription medication. So I mean, whether or not that messed with the growth of his his brain, who knows? I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I can only speculate. And also, his father was oblivious to anything that his son was doing all along. He had no idea that Jeffrey Dahmer had killed 17 men. He ended up learning a lot of the details of Jeffrey's crimes through testimony while in the courtroom, and he sat there listening and learning for the first time all the hideous details of Jeffrey's actions and doings. I mean, that must have been so hard to sit and learn that your son is a monster. Does he blame himself? He does a little bit, but ultimately it seems like Jeffrey Dahmer was on his own path. He went his own way. Lionel does mention that he himself had thought about murdering someone. Like we probably all do have thoughts like that. Especially when it comes to bullies. If you're being bullied at school, you think about stopping them, and just you think some bad thoughts sometimes that you don't ever action. That's the thing. We have these thoughts, but we don't act on them. Jeffrey Dahmer, well, he went beyond just acting on those feelings. It consumed him, where he became the infamous and notorious serial killer that he is now known as. Jeffrey Dahmer went to a place that no one should ever go to. I am a fan of true crime, and I must say that this was quite interesting. One thing that I read near the end, well after Jeffrey was sentenced to however many life sentences it was, the police had, prior to all that, had taken all of Jeffrey Dahmer's belongings from his apartment. After he was sentenced to life imprisonment, well, the police contacted Lionel to come pick up his Jeffrey's belongings. Jeffrey had music by Motley Crue, as well as Def Leppard's Hysteria album. That was in his possession. He had the movie Blade Runner. He had the movie Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. He was also a fan and had a copy of Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. I guess Jeffrey Dahmer related to Emperor Palpatine. He particularly liked that character. And very famously, he also had a copy of The Exorcist 3. As a horror fan, this is a really good movie. I really enjoyed this one as much as I enjoyed the original. And as much as I hate to say it, I think Dahmer did have good taste in music as well as movies. Anyways, that's today's video, guys. If you have a chance to get a copy of A Father's Story by Lionel Dahmer, I do suggest you give it a read. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope that you'll join me again in my next video. You know what? It's been a while since I saw Exorcist 3, and I'm gonna go ahead and give this another watch. So, like, comment, and subscribe.